Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Learn on Internet. So today we are going to understand the speech of 13th May 2020 given by our Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman. The first tranche includes the following measures: 6 for MSME, 2 for EPF, 2 for NBFCs and MFIs, 1 for discoms, 1 for real estate and 3 relating to tax. But before that, let's get into few facts. The manufacturing and service sector contribute to over 80% of India's GDP and has been hit the hardest amid COVID-19 lockdown. Many economists have predicted that India's economy will either remain stagnant or contract by more than 2% in the financial year 2020-21. The growth projections earlier were around 5 to 6.5% for the current financial year, that is 2020-21, where Fitch Ratings has now predicted the growth rate to be 0.8% and Moody's credit rating agency has predicted it to be 0%. Surprisingly, just 1 week of lockdown in March 2020 brought the Index of Industrial Production, that is IIP, crashing to a historic low of negative 16.7%. Now let's know few facts about IIP. Firstly, there is a lag of 6 weeks in the publication of the IIP index. It is currently calculated using 2011 and 12 as the base year. The components of IIP includes electricity, crude oil, coal, steel, refinery products, natural gas and fertilizers that comprise about 40% of the weight of items included in calculating the IIP. Finally, IIP data is comprised and published by CSO or Central Statistical Organization operating under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation every month. The IIP index data, once released, is also available on the Press Information Bureau website, the link of which is given in the description below. From the comparison of global economic packages as a percentage of their GDP, India stands at the 5th position with 10% of the GDP provided as the economic package when compared with other developed and developing nations around the world. The 5 pillars of growth mentioned in the speech are: first, the economy; second is the infrastructure; third is the technology-driven systems with the help of information technology solutions; fourth is the demography, which means the composition of a particular human population; and the last is the demand. Now getting into the measures taken up. The 6 measures taken up for micro, small and medium enterprises or MSMEs are as follows. Number 1. Collateral-free automatic loan for MSMEs which are standard and operating. The total amount allocated is Rs 3 lakh crores. For those MSMEs whose balance sheet as on 29th February 2020 shows loans less than or equal to Rs 25 crores and the profit and loss statement shows turnover greater than or equals to Rs 100 crores, the 4-year tenure loans up to 20% of outstanding credit will be provided with a moratorium of 12 months on only the principal repayment. That is to say, banks and NBFCs will provide the loan to the MSMEs without any additional security or to say collaterals. And if the MSME fails to return back the loan, the Government of India will provide for the loss of funds to the banks and NBFCs. Several points to be noted here are: offer is valid till 31st of October 2020. No fresh collateral are required to be provided by the MSMEs for procuring loans under the scheme. And also, there will not be any guarantee fee charged by the Government of India from MSMEs for giving the guarantee for the loans taken by these MSMEs. The second measure taken up for MSMEs is subordinate debt for stressed MSMEs. A provision of Rs 20,000 crores liquidity through subordinated debt-based scheme is being made. The Government of India is to provide Rs 4,000 crores to Credit Guarantee Funds Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises or CGT-MSE. Now the question arises as to what is subordinated debt. The answer to which is it generally carries a high rate of interest than other debt instruments and it is comparatively riskier than other debt instruments. Let us now understand how CGT-MSE operates. The Credit Guarantee Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises, also known as CGT-MSE, takes up the risk cover up to a certain percentage of loan provided by the banks and NBFCs, also known as money lending institutions, when they provide loans to MSMEs. Now, if the MSMEs are unable to repay the loan to these banks and NBFCs, the CGT MSE will provide for the amount for which it has taken up the risk cover for such loan. Coming back to the second measure announced, an amount of Rs 20,000 crores has been set aside for such MSME non-performing assets or parties which have defaulted in the repayment of loans extended to them. This measure will operate as, from the funds of the Government of India, Rs 4,000 crores has been provided to CGT MSE, which will in turn take the risk cover up to a certain percentage of debt which will be provided by banks and NBFCs to the promoters of stressed MSMEs. That is up to 15% of promoters' stake with maximum of Rs 75 lakhs, which will then in turn be infused into the stressed MSMEs by the promoters in the form of equity. Let's say, for example, promoter Mr. A, who has formed the company or MSME, holds shares of Rs 6 crores in XYZ Private Limited, which is a MSME, and which has been declared as NPA in the books of banks and NBFCs. Now, as per the stimulus package announced, ABC Bank can give loans up to 15% of Mr. A's stake in XYZ Private Limited, subject to the maximum of Rs 75 lakhs. Thus, 15% of Rs 6 crores comes out to Rs 90 lakhs, but the maximum limit has been fixed at Rs 75 lakhs. Thus, Mr. A can get loans up to Rs 75 lakhs only. Now, coming back to the same example, that is, promoter Mr. A holds shares of Rs 6 crores in XYZ Private Limited, which has been declared as NPA in the books of banks and NBFCs. As per the stimulus package announced, ABC Bank can provide loans to Mr. A up to Rs 75 lakhs, which will then be brought in as equity infusion into XYZ Private Limited by Mr. A. Now, if Mr. A fails to repay the amount to ABC Bank, the CGT MSE, let's say, took up the risk cover up to 75% of the loans provided. In the present scenario, it would amount to Rs 56,25,000, which will be provided to CGT MSE by the Government of India funds, which will then in turn be infused to the NBFCs and banks for their loss of funds. Now, before getting into the third measure for MSME, let's understand few of the topics, like what is an investment fund and what is fund of funds or mother fund and daughters fund. Talking about what is an investment fund, let's say there is a fund managing company named ABC Limited. It accepts money from the investors and invests in the share market with its expertise in portfolio management, and thus, let's say, forms Fund A with the shares of Reliance, Tata and MRF Tyres. Thus, an investment fund is a way of investing money alongside other investors in order to benefit from the inherent advantages of working as a part of a group and also having a professional managing their investments. Now, talking about what is fund of funds or mother fund and daughters fund. Now, let's say there is a fund managing company ABC Limited which has created Fund A of investments in government securities, Fund B with shares in stock market, and Fund C with investments in corporate bonds. Similarly, there is another fund managing company DEF Limited which has created Fund D with investments in government securities and Fund E with investments in stock market. Now, what is fund of funds or mother fund? Let's suppose there is also another fund managing company XYZ Limited, the fund manager of which provides mandates, that is instructions for investments, to the fund managers of ABC Limited and DEF Limited. Then, this XYZ Limited is known as the mother fund and ABC Limited and DEF Limited are known as daughters fund. Now, understanding the third measure, that is Rs 50,000 crores equity infusion through MSME with growth potential via fund of funds. The Government of India will invest in the form of corpus, that is funding by purchase of equity shares, and incorporate a special purpose vehicle, generally a company known as the mother fund, which will provide mandates to few daughter funds, which will then create a portfolio of investments in MSMEs by purchasing their equity shares, which will thus fund these MSMEs in the form of equity and also allow them to attain growth potentials. The fourth measure taken up is the introduction of new definition of MSMEs, in which investment limit has been revised upwards. additional criteria of turnover has been introduced or inserted in the definition, and there are no separate threshold limits for manufacturing and service sectors as it used to be in the earlier definition. Thus, same limits have been fixed for both. Looking up at the revised MSME classification table from the balance sheet and profit and loss account of the MSME, it can be classified as micro if investments are less than rupees 1 crores and the turnover is less than rupees 5 crores. Small if investments are less than rupees 10 crores and the turnover is less than rupees 50 crores. And finally, medium if investments are less than rupees 20 crores and the turnover is less than rupees 100 crores. This definition has been amended to take into scope more MSMEs which can avail the benefits and thus grow their businesses and provide support for the overall growth of the economy. The next measure is global tenders to be disallowed of amounts up to rupees 200 crores. Problems persisting. Indian MSMEs and other companies have often faced unfair competition from foreign companies while applying for global tenders. Now the question arises, what is global tenders? The answer to which is, global tenders is the virtual marketplace or a website for global companies helping buyers and suppliers or sellers to connect from all the sectors. Here is a screenshot of Global Tenders website and the link to the website is given in the description below. Looking into the solution brought into, all global tenders for government procurement up to rupees 200 crores will be disallowed, thereby allowing only Indian companies to take up the businesses. Necessary general financial rules will be amended accordingly to reflect the changes, and this will be a step towards self-reliant India or Atmanirbhar Bharat and support Make in India. Thus MSMEs can obtain more business opportunities. And the last measure for MSMEs as other interventions is, let us first understand the problems persisting. Due to COVID-19, MSMEs are facing marketing and liquidity issues. Further, post-lockdown, the scenario of trade fairs and exhibitions will be a very tough situation to conduct marketing and exhibiting strategies. The solution brought into is e-market linkage for MSMEs to be promoted as a replacement for trade fairs and exhibitions, thus overcoming the marketing barriers up to a certain extent. Further, accounts receivables from government and central public sector enterprises or CPSEs, that is money due from government enterprises to MSMEs, is to be released in 45 days. Financial technologies to be enhanced to improve e-marketplace transactions over the website. Thus, it will improve the liquidity crunch the MSMEs are facing at present and also provide better transactional flows, that is, through establishment of safe and secure transacting modes. Coming up to the next topic, the two measures taken up for Employees Provident Fund are: Number 1. Rupees 2,500 crores EPF support for business and workers for 3 more months for eligible establishments. Now the question arises as to what is eligible establishment. It is an establishment which is providing employment for up to 100 people and whose 90% employees were getting wages less than rupees 15,000 per month. Let us understand this measure taken up. The employer and the employees of the eligible establishments who are required to contribute to the Employees Provident Fund are provided a relief, as both the employer and the employee's contribution are not required to be paid by them, but instead the Government of India will fund for these contributions. That is to say, the employers and the employee contribution of 12% each has been paid for March, April and May 2020 and as per the announcement will be paid from Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana for further 3 months, that is June, July and August 2020. The second measure announced is EPF contribution reduced for business and workers for 3 months as Rs 6,750 crores liquidity support. This scheme is applicable for those establishments which are not covered under eligible establishments as discussed in the previous measure. For the month of June, July and August 2020, employers and for employees, including central and state PSU workers, statutory contribution to EPF will be 10% each, whereas central and state PSUs as employers will continue to contribute 12% as the employer's share of contribution to EPF, thus providing more take-home salary for employees and funds in the hands of the employers. Next, The two measures taken up for non-banking financial companies and microfinance institutions are: before moving on to the first measure, let us know a small fact. NBFCs and microfinance institutions or MFIs provide several types of loans such as personal loans, business purpose loans, loans to MSMEs, housing loans, and various other types of loans. Whereas housing finance companies or HFCs exclusively provide housing loans. Now, what is a primary market? Suppose an unlisted company wants to get itself listed on the stock exchange, for which it reaches out to a merchant banker who checks the compliances and prepares and submits several documents required to SEBI. And after the approval from SEBI, these shares are offered to public at large for subscription directly from the company and its underwriters. This is known as the primary market, where the securities are subscribed for the first time. Secondary markets, also known as stock markets, is a place where, let's suppose, Mr. A, who bought his shares through initial public offering, can sell these shares to Mr. B or any other person who did or did not bought shares through IPO. Thus, it is a place where securities exchange hands. Coming up to the first measure, Rs 30,000 crores special liquidity scheme for NBFCs, MFIs and HFCs. Let's understand this measure. NBFCs, MFIs or HFCs will issue debt instruments of investment grade, which are relatively low risk bonds, through primary markets to investors for subscription in exchange for the investment. And these securities will be allowed to trade in secondary markets, where the securities will exchange hands through buying and selling of the securities among other market players. Now the funds raised through issuing securities will be lended to MSMEs and other businesses for their business operations. Now if these MSMEs and others are unable to repay the loan back to NBFCs, MFIs or HFCs, the NBFCs, MFIs or HFCs won't be able to pay back the investments made by the investors. Thus, in order to avoid such risks to the investors, the Government of India will provide 100% guarantee on these debt instruments, and thus the Government of India will pay for the loss of funds to these NBFCs, MFIs and HFCs, and they would hence be able to repay back the investments made by the investors. The second measure taken up is Rs 45,000 crores Partial Credit Guarantee Scheme, that is PCGS 2.0 for NBFCs, HFCs and MFIs. Let us understand this. NBFCs or HFCs and MFIs are provided ratings based on the quality of assets, profitability and several other factors. NBFCs, HFCs and MFIs with low ratings have balance sheets with liability side, where they have issued bonds and commercial papers to investors in exchange for the investment, and disbursed these investments to MSMEs and other businesses, and also to individuals and others, which is recorded in the asset side of the balance sheet on which these institutions earn interest. Now when these MSMEs and others are unable to repay the loan back to NBFCs or HFCs and MFIs, these lending institutions are unable to repay the investments to their investors, due to which the investors have low faith in investing in these institutions due to the risk of losing funds. Thus, in order to boost the liquidity in the hands of these NBFCs, HFCs and MFIs, the Government of India will take up the risk cover up to 20%, known as partial credit guarantee, on these investments made by the investors for AA and below rated, including unrated papers. The measure taken for power distribution companies known as DISCOMs is. But before that, let us first know the purpose of power distribution companies. The electricity is generated at power plants by electricity generation companies known as GENCOs, which are then transmitted to substations through the use of equipments and are stored in capacitors at these substations, from where the role of power DISCOMs comes into the play. The power DISCOMs are responsible to transmit the electricity from substations to various consumers like households, corporations, and industries. The DISCOMs collect payments from the consumers against the energy supplies and thereby pay for the energy charges to the GENCOs. The measure announced is Rs 90,000 crores liquidity injection for DISCOMs. Let us understand this. Due to the liquidity crunch in the economy, the balance sheets of DISCOMs shows payables to the GENCOs for an amount greater than 94,000 crore rupees, as the turnover has decreased drastically due to the lockdown, and also the collection from receivables is blocked to a larger extent. Thus, In order to overcome this blockage of funds, the Power Finance Corporation and the Rural Electrification Corporation, working as NBFCs, will provide funds against these receivables to DISCOMs for the exclusive purpose of discharging liabilities to generating companies. Further, the central public sector GENCOs are asked to provide rebate up to 25% on fixed charges billed to these DISCOMs, which shall be passed on to the final consumers. Before getting into the measures taken up for contractors, let us know about few concepts. First, in public sector enterprise contracts, the contractor is required to submit requisite amount of bank guarantee to the government before undertaking the project. Now the question arises as to what is bank guarantee. Let us understand this with the help of a simple example. Suppose a company as a contractor wants to undertake a project for a PSU. Now, for this purpose, he will have to provide security to the bank and obtain a bank guarantee certificate, which will be submitted by the contractor to the PSU. Now, if the contractor fails to complete the project or the PSU suffers any loss due to the contractor, the PSU will claim the loss from the contractor. And if the contractor fails to pay the same, the amount of loss will be recovered by redeeming the bank guarantee certificate. And thereby, the bank will claim the amount from the contractor, and if the amount is not received within a stipulated time period, the bank will sell the security through auction or any other mode and recover the amount paid by the bank. Thus, bank guarantee is in the nature of a surety for the debtor or contractee as a mode of recovering the amount. Now talking about what is EPC or engineering, procurement and construction contracts. It is the most prominent form of a contract in the construction industry, in which the contractor will carry out the detailed engineering design of the project, procure all the equipment and materials, and also construct and deliver or hand over the projects to the contractee. Further, what is concessional period in public-private partnership contracts? Generally applied in build, operate and transfer project models where the contractor building the infrastructure project like constructing highways, etc. gets the operational rights as well for a substantial period of time, let's say 30 years, which is also known as concession period, from which it recovers the costs incurred and profits in constructing such project, after which the entire rights are handed over to the public sector enterprise. For example, toll fees are collected by such contractors from the highway projects. Coming back to the measures, the relief provided to contractors are extension of up to 6 months for performance of contracts by all central agencies like Railways, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, Central Public Works Department, etc., which will cover construction or works and goods and services contracts, obligations like completion of work, extension of concession period in public-private partnership contracts, government agencies to partially release bank guarantees to the extent contracts are partially completed to ease the cash flows. For example, bank guarantee provided by the contractor is for Rs 10 lakhs. Now, out of the work performed, work completed and certified by the contractee stands at 70%. Thus, bank guarantee up to Rs 7 lakhs will be released by the central agencies. Before getting into the next topic on the measures taken up for real estate projects, let us understand a brief concept about real estate purchases. Generally, a buyer enters into a contract with a real estate developer after paying the booking amount along with down payment for the purchase of a house, flat or apartment, and for the balance amount reaches out to a bank, NBFC or Housing Finance Corporation, by which the bank pays for the balance amount to the real estate developer and then collects the amount along with interest from the buyer in the form of EMIs. Further, let's know about few headings such as what is handover or possession date. It is referred to in the contract as to the date on which the possession after the completion of the project will be handed over to the buyer, and the seller withdraws all the rights over the property from this date. Now, what is the time limit for handing over the possession as per RERA? As per the Real Estate Regulations Authority or RERA, the property shall be handed over within 3 months from the completion of the project. And what is the grace period allowed by RERA? It's up to 6 months from the possession date mentioned in the agreement. Coming up to the measure as relief to real estate projects. State governments are advised to invoke the force majeure clause under RERA. Force majeure refers to any event or effect that can neither be anticipated nor controlled. The registration and completion dates for all the registered projects shall be extended suo motu, that is on its own, by 6 months whose due dates were on or after 25th of March 2020 without individual applications. Regulatory authorities may extend it for another 3 months if needed. Authorities are also advised to issue fresh project registration certificates with revised timelines. Authorities are also advised to extend concurrently the timelines for various statutory compliances under RERA. This will de-stress real estate developers and ensure the completion of projects with new timelines so that the home buyers are able to get the delivery of their booked houses with new timelines. It will also reduce the litigations against the developers who are unable to fulfill the contract conditions relating to completion, handing over, or transfer of possession as per the dates mentioned in the agreement. Finally, the measures taken up in the area of taxation are regarding TDS or TCS rates and extension of due dates. But before that, let's understand the concept of tax deduction at source or TDS and tax collection at source or TCS. The main objective of both these forms of taxes are to keep a trace on the transactions undertaken. Suppose an individual who is subject to tax audit takes up a house on rent at Rs 30,000 per month or Rs 3,60,000 per year. He is required to deduct TDS under Section 194I of the Income Tax Act 1961 at the rate of 10%, that is Rs 36,000 per annum or Rs 3,000 per month, which will be deposited by the individual directly to the government, and he will pay only the balance amount of Rs 27,000 to his landlord as monthly rent. This portion of tax deposited by the tenant to the Income Tax Department is known as tax deduction at source. Similarly, there is tax collection at source. Specific people or organizations classified as sellers are liable to collect tax from specific persons classified as buyers and deposit the same with the government. Like, on sale of Tendu leaves of Rs 1 lakh, the seller is liable to collect TCS at the rate of 5%, that is Rs 5,000, and deposit the same with the Income Tax Department. Now, the first measure announced was reduction in rates of TDS and TCS by 25% for all non-salaried payments to residents. It is applicable for the remaining part of the financial year 2020-21 from 14th May 2020. It is expected to release liquidity to the tune of Rs 50,000 crores in the hands of taxpayers, which can be utilized as working capital. Further, any payments to non-residents will attract the same rates of tax in force, and this reduction of 25% is not applicable for them. Coming back to the same example of taking a flat on rent, instead of deducting TDS at the rate of 10%, TDS will be deducted at 10 minus 25% of 10, that comes to 7.5%, which comes to Rs 27,000 per annum or Rs 2250 per month, and the net rent payable will be Rs 30,000 minus 2250, that is Rs 27,750 per month. The second measure announced is extension of due dates of all income tax returns for financial year 2019 and 20. Dates will be extended from due date on 31st July 2020 and 31st October 2020 to 30th November 2020, and for tax audits from 30th September 2020 to 31st October 2020. And all the pending refunds to charitable trusts and non-corporate businesses and professions including proprietorship, partnership, LLPs and cooperatives shall be issued immediately. And the last one, extension of dates of assessments and period of Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. The extended dates of assessment for all the assessments getting barred on 30th September 2020 will be 31st December 2020, and the assessments getting barred on 31st March 2021 will be extended to 30th September 2021. Finally, Vivad Se Vishwas Bill was launched during the finance budget speech, which aims to reduce litigations between the Income Tax Department and the taxpayers. The provision to pay 100% of the disputed tax with waiver of interest and penalty, or where dispute relates to penalty, interest or fees, payment of 25% of such disputed penalty, interest or fees was to be paid latest by 31st March 2020 in order to reach to a settlement of such dispute, which has now been extended up to 31st December 2020. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video if you found the content to be useful. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to get the latest updates and new videos on informative and educational topics. Do share it with your friends and family to spread the knowledge. Also comment your queries, feedbacks and suggestions if any in the comment section below.